and then some last week trying to make sure we could make this work. So let's keep our fingers crossed. I want to welcome you and just kind of go over our grant goals. I know you're familiar with these, but I want to talk a little bit about each one and give you kind of an update as to where we are with each one. Our major overarching goal for this is to give teachers a chance to integrate kind of across the curriculum at the high school level and to use global climate change as kind of our context for this in biology, chemistry, physics, and earth science, and to use the new next generation science standards to do that. We think we have everybody with a unit that's on target now. We've been working on it for since this past summer, and as you would expect, with new standards, new understandings, a different way of thinking about it, even within your class, it's taken us a little bit of time to get there, but we're feeling better about it. So hopefully, most people said they would be implementing later this school year, so that's when we'll start the next round of classroom observations. We have not worked with the content literacy nearly as much as I would like to. Just for a couple of reasons. It's been so overwhelming introducing the new standards, thinking about the unit development. We have been working with kind of stretch readings and looking at some close readings of those. We've done some of that in the summer. We have talked to our SLSN people who have had 3 years really of working with the content literacy standards and asked them to be working with their colleagues, but I know time doesn't always allow for that. So the content literacy standards are something that we're really going to spend more time on this coming summer and some next year, because we don't feel like we've addressed that like we want to. We hope we're building some capacity within the department. I know that most departments have met. There's money in the grant again for this summer for another day of training for the science department to work together, to continue to work on curriculum, work on unit development. So there'll be some money to cover that through the grant again this summer. And we'll be going over those stipulations with participants when we meet in February 7th, as well as in the summertime. And we really have been working on a range of effective instructional practices to get at highly effective teaching and learning. And they'll also address the new teacher professional growth effectiveness system. So we feel pretty good about 1, 3, and 4. Number 2 is one that we need to spend more time on. And we also need to work more on what integration of engineering looks like at the high school level. So that's kind of the progress on our goals to this point. These are some sites that we have. We have a Google site where we have just posted lots of documents that provide data sets, information, video, readings, things like that based on climate change that can be used in a range of disciplines. And we also have an Edmodo site, which is a little more interactive. We've tried to use it during meetings, but we also post things in the folder for the meeting that might be of use. So we've got an Edmodo site. We also feel like Edmodo is going to be very useful for the teachers, especially as they implement project-based learning. So that's one of the reasons we kind of wanted to practice that. And I have a Weebly site. I just put this on here because some of you may be interested in it. I have a range of resources just around next generation science standards. I just try to keep it kind of updated and post a range of things on it. And then I have also a tab with a lot of information for content literacy work. So these are some websites that you may be interested in checking out, just some of the information that we've got posted there. But it's kind of our repository of materials for teachers to use, so they don't have to have everything in paper copy. Just a little funny for this morning, because we've been dealing with global climate change and knowing that that's one of the more controversial areas in the next generation science standards. And that's kind of been the approach we've taken. How do we know these claims are true? That's kind of the approach we use this summer and something we continue to work on, and not saying, okay, here it is, but how do we look at the information that's out there? How do we gauge reliability? So this is kind of the approach that we've been taking. Just want to give you a little more of an update on where we are with the projects, where we're headed. answer any questions, concerns, anything like that that you might have, suggestions from your teachers on this. Our next meeting, this was the one that we had to reschedule because we had to cancel in December with the weather, and that turned out to be a good decision. It's a hard one to make, but it turned out to be a good one. It will be February 7th. And then these are our summer dates for our MUSE participants. It'll be June 11, 12, and 13th. So just some dates for you to keep in mind. Just in kind of thinking about where we are with this project, in August, this is after the summer, one of the things we wanted to do was to make sure the whole department was on the same page about their understanding of scientific modeling as it's described in the Next Generation Science Standards, and argumentation as an academic argumentation, which goes along with the content literacy standards, but one of the practices for the Next Generation Science Standards. So we kind of divided them into teams and did a topic study where we really looked in depth, looked at some research papers on modeling and argumentation to try to build our understanding of that. We feel like these are two kind of the power practices, if you were, critical ones. Everything will hinge around this. And it's really different from what we've done in the classroom in the past. So these are some that we're trying to build a more robust understanding of for our teachers. And it's one we're still growing in our understanding. Then we had each person take back and administer, is it a model probe, from some of the Paige Keeley materials, and we've got an across-the-board look, freshmen through seniors, of what students' understanding of a scientific model is. So it was interesting when we brought that data back and kind of compiled it to see where our students were in their understanding of that. We brought that back and looked at it in September. We also spent time in August in how do you take these standards and move to instruction. They're different standards, so it looks different. It's not quite as straightforward a process as we've done in the past with the deconstruction, and so that's something we've done. And in looking at where teachers are in their unit development right now, it's something we're going to have to come back to and revisit again because they kind of changed a little bit and firmed this up. And then the last thing we did was to look at project-based learning, kind of introduce this as a way to organize instruction and how that might look. Again, this is something that's new to our teachers, so this is something we really have worked on at every meeting. And based on their feedback from this last session that we had, I think that they're starting to feel a little more confidence in being able to develop a project-based learning type unit. September was just a mess of a meeting, and we really apologize to the teachers for that. One of our goals was to look at how do we help kids access large data sets and make sense of those. And one of the ways you can do that is to use a software called ArcGIS. And we had Scott Dobler from Western Kentucky University come in, and our goal was for him to get teachers into the program and how do you use this so they could see it is a possibility for helping their students use large data sets. It's also kind of a forward-thinking approach because many jobs out there use this software. It's not a real easy software to use, but we didn't get where we wanted to with the ArcGIS, and we were frustrated, the teachers were frustrated, but that's something we're continuing to work on. We're looking for some people on campus to help us with this because we feel like it's a very powerful modeling software. You've probably been getting some emails from Scott with contracts. It's a free software to the state. That's another advantage. The state has a license for it. It's just how do we get our students able to use that? And that's what we're working on. And then we worked on developing driving questions for the unit. That's really the overarching question. It's how we're going to hook the kids. It's how we're going to establish a need to know. And it really, everything in their project-based learning unit hinges on that question. So we've been working on that. Then in our October meeting, we spent time in looking at how students learn, what we know about the research. These new Next Generation Science Standards are based on this research, so we looked at those 3 principles of learning, thought about what we currently do to address those 3 principles and how we can be very purposeful and overt in the work that we do. Your teachers have like a 3-page summary of that research that you might find useful. It's something that you may want to use with your staff as well. It also has some implications and suggestions on there that the teachers might find useful as well. Then our goal was that they kind of firm up their driving question, have an assessment map, what's going to be your summative, what will be your formatives, where do you need to take these checks along the way. So we worked on assessment maps, working on benchmark lessons. In project-based learning, it's a great way to differentiate because not every student is doing the same thing every day. It's kind of based on their part of the project and what they're contributing to that in small groups. Benchmark lessons are those critical things that we want all kids to experience. We had the teachers experience one. Joe Straley came in from UK and work them through a data set and thinking about data analysis, because we know this is going to be a huge part of everybody's unit. So we wanted to say, this is the kind of lesson you want every kid to experience, and here's why. And then just last week on Friday, we again worked on developing assessments. There's a new report out. Your teachers have the summary of that report as well as the link to the PDF from National Academy Press. This came from kind of a blue ribbon invited panel of assessment experts who have really been combing the research and thinking about what will these assessments look like for next generation science standards. The teachers did a great job of thinking about what are the takeaways, what are the implications for instruction, and it kind of gives you some things to think about for in the future, especially this summer when they start doing more curriculum work. So they have a copy of the summary of this report as well as information on how to access that. So you may want to talk to them a little bit about that. That was kind of our new learning for the January meeting. And then we divided work time up in the morning where we looked at the unit from a macro view, what's the big picture view of this unit, really. Can you say in a sentence what you want kids to walk away with? How will you know that they know it? And what are those benchmark lessons? And then in the afternoon, we started working on the micro view. Okay, what is the nitty-gritty? What's the day-to-day going to be with that? So that's kind of where teachers are with the units. They are working cross schools, and that's been really interesting because they're not used to working with each other, but for the most part, I feel like that has enriched everybody's experience. They all brought back misconception research articles, not just in general, but here's from the literature. And so we did spend some time thinking about, okay, this, now how does that inform instruction? What do you do when you uncover misconceptions? What's that mean? What are instructional implications? So we felt like we had a very productive meeting in January. This is kind of where we're headed. Oh, never mind. This is what they've received so far. Every school has gotten the list that you see on the left-hand side. They've got some infrared thermometers. That's especially useful for the physics teacher because the approach that the physics teachers are taking is to look at how infrared radiation interacts with matter, in particular carbon dioxide, because that's a key component. They've received some oxygen probes, which will be important, especially in biology class when we're looking at how do we look at normal daily cycles of carbon dioxide and oxygen, then how do we look at those across time, seasonally, and then how do we look at those across long periods of time. So they're going to be collecting data and kind of looking at data sets to compare those. The pH sensors will be used in the chemistry classrooms where chemistry is mainly looking at equilibrium chemistry and thinking about ocean acidification. So what's really interesting about that is they're looking at big, small scale, how can we study it in a contained environment in the lab, but then also look at it in a large scale in the ocean. So some really interesting units that are coming out of this. The EKG, the drop counters, and some of those will be used in our next unit coming up, but we went ahead and ordered that because there was more money in the first year of the grant for materials then in subsequent years. And also, each school got one argumentation in biology, which has lots of data sets, really useful for a range of biological principles, climate change pole to pole, more biological, and then thinking about some of the energy ramifications of Fuel for Thought books. So almost $4,000 per school just this past year. And then each teacher got some specific materials. Rough Guide to Climate Change, which is an excellent resource, and we've been using excerpts from that and looking at strategies to access that. They can use that with their students. Classroom Strategies for Interactive Learning from Doug Buell, and that's one again that's for content literacy strategies. Really nice resource. A book we have not given them yet because we haven't really emphasized this, but this is Reading and Writing in Science. It's by Marcia Grant and Doug Fisher. Real practical approaches to that, and we'll be working on that this summer. And then everybody got a copy of the framework as well as printed versions of the standards. So that's what they have now. We have ordered LabQuest and carbon dioxide sensors and a few other things on this round of money, which hopefully will be in at the February meeting. So most of the materials should be in that they need to implement the units. Again, one of the things we're stressing is how important the design is of this, because we all know this, that kids can't do any better than what we ask them to do. So that's kind of been our mantra as we've been working on it. And it's kind of a daunting task because the standards are so different. The approach we're using is different. People aren't feeling confident, but I can't tell you how wonderful it is to work with them. They're a great group. They work diligently every meeting. We thought this graphic was kind of useful to think about what's different, and this has kind of resonated with the teachers. In the past, we may have saved this little project down here, just for, oh yeah, that'll just be a tag on. But now what we're looking at is that is kind of the hinge point for the whole unit, and it's really our summative assessment. There'll be other kinds of assessments along the way, but this project is what everything in the unit hinges on, and so we want it to be a robust project. We want it to be engaging to kids. We want them to use a range of thinking strategies to get there, and it should create this. Well, what is the answer? We want to know about this. We tried to model this summer with our teachers, and we've kind of used that as our touchstone experience, gone back and talked to them about it. And at this point, this is where students would be doing a range of things, maybe in small groups differently, and not everybody doing the same thing. This benchmark lesson is one where, this is something for everybody, for each student in order to complete their project. This is something they're going to need. So we're in the process of developing those and identifying them. So as you can see, it's not the same trajectory that we're used to in the past. And that's something for some of our teachers, they're embracing this. Yes, it's giving me a guideline. For some of them, it's very different. And you know who's struggling with it the most? That's going to be our biology teachers with end of course. We're hoping that they'll embrace it and see how this is good. Kids, if they can do this, they'll be fine on that EOC. We really are looking at standards in the next generation science standards that match what they're responsible for in EOC, so they're not doing something at odds with having kids prepared for that test. And so another part of this is taking the presentation beyond just we stand up and tell our classmates something. But, so you may be invited in to be a part of this. Harrison County's doing something just really exciting. They're going to have kind of a school showcase on Earth Day. So we hope to attend that, where all of the science classes are doing something related to understanding climate change. And then they'll have a showcase for the school, for the general public, for others. And that's kind of how they're doing the present part of this. That's a key part, really wanting students to have an in-depth understanding of this, to be able to explain it to the public. And then a major component, and we know this goes along with how students learn, is this reflecting on it. What worked for me? What do I need some help with? And so that's something we're working on as well. We've not spent much time on that, but we will at our February meeting. So this is kind of where we are. We've been using a lot of material from Edutopia and the Buck Institute. They are places that do a lot of work on project-based learning. Dr. Jennifer Wilhelm, who is one of our facilitators in the College of Ed, who has a math and a physics background, her expertise is in project-based learning, and her dissertation was on that. So she's really been helping us understand this and kind of guiding the development. This past meeting, we sat with groups of teachers and gave them feedback on where they were and some suggestions, things to think about. So we're trying to provide that ongoing feedback as they do the unit development. So that's kind of where we are with that. This comes from a new book by Roger Bybee on translating these new standards for classroom instruction. And this is something that we really are still trying to get a handle on, this idea that kids use the evidence. Oops. Trying to figure this out. Kids use the evidence to formulate explanations. And so that's where we want their projects to go. Often engineering is a great way to do this because it could be to solve a problem. And in several of the standards, performance expectations that the teachers have identified, they are designated as engineering, where kids are asked to evaluate solutions to problems. So this idea of modeling and arguing from evidence and constructing explanations, those are the things that we're really spending a lot of our time on, and trying to build teachers' understanding so that translates into instruction. Here's kind of where we're headed. One of the things the teachers have asked us to do for the February meeting is to spend a little bit more time on engineering design, thinking about what that means, how that's different from how solving a problem is different from constructing an explanation with these standards. And then we'll spend more time on firming up their assessments as well as that culminating event, that project for the end of that, and the reflections that go along with it. In February through May, I think most people, when they told us kind of their time frame, it was going to be March, and many it was going to be April and May when they were implementing. So we're going to be in the process of setting up classroom observations for that, and we will let you know when we're coming, as soon as we can kind of get those dates firmed up. The classroom observations have proved to be tremendously helpful for us as we're designing what we do with the teachers. It also helps us give them better feedback on their unit because we kind of know where they are in their understanding and where they are in implementation with this. So mainly when we do the observations, we'll be looking at how the unit plays out and being able to just be the second eyes and ears in the classroom for teachers for that. Then our June dates, June 11th, 12th, and 13th, we'll be doing unit revisions. Okay, we taught it. We're asking the teachers to see student work samples of not only the project at the end, but as well as benchmark lessons along the way, whatever they think might be useful, and to say good and not so good, because we'll learn from both of those. Then our new context will be kind of a health context across the disciplines. That'll be a very different approach. So that's one of the things we're really stressing is this interdisciplinary nature of it. Just because we're in biology doesn't mean we can't be looking at some earth science. Just because we're in chemistry doesn't mean that we can't be looking at some biology, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where the emphasis is going to be at the June meeting. This is the thing that's still not resonating, how different these standards are and how different it's going to make instruction. I know Some really get it and they're working on it. There's some of your teachers that we could just come in and video now because they're there. And there's some that it's still, it's just hard to give up what we've known. And so again, those classroom observations help with that, and it helps us be able to provide more appropriate differentiated feedback to the students, to the teachers. Okay, here's where we really need your support. Just it is an expectation to implement the unit. Just talk to them about it. How's it going? What's frustrating, what's working, what are they encouraged about, excited about, maybe offer to be in, especially to be a part of the observers or someone that the students can present to. So we think that's going to be very important. Also, we're still having a little bit of trouble with a few teachers. We know we had an emergency situation for one teacher this past time. Those come up all the time. That's just to be expected. But we have some teachers who are not attending regularly for various reasons. Kim just went to an MSP meeting last week, and one of the things that they stressed was attendance, that they're seeing this across all projects. It's like people just kind of pick and choose. Well, yeah, I feel like going today, so I will. It's been really important in this project that teachers be here because they are working across districts. So it's kind of like in the classroom when your group members don't show up. So if you could just encourage them to attend, support them in it. We know that it's hard when you've been out for snow and things like that to want to be away from your classroom. We do try to make it worth their time. And we'll try to honor their request of more work time and really digging into these standards and what's it going to look like. So again, we need your support in encouraging their attendance. It's like, okay, I'm doing this blanket thing, and for some schools that's not been an issue at all. Everybody's been there. And then for a couple of places that has been a concern. So you might just want to talk to your teachers about it and encourage them and tell them, you do understand, but hopefully what they're getting out of this is going to pay off in the long run for really understanding how to implement these. Oh, as we were looking at that report on developing assessments for NGSS, we gave teachers some early examples that come from the research, from the researchers who are putting this together, as well as from Stephen Pruitt, just to get a feel for some of the things that we're looking at down the road. So you may want to ask them to look at those, just kind of see, oh, here's some of those expectations, because they are very robust in what we're looking at asking students to do. So thinking about how we begin to get there, and we hope that this project's kind of taking them along those lines. And then that's really the update. I wanted you to know kind of where they were in their units. We are making progress. We've done kind of for all of you who do curriculum instruction work, you know this, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back sometimes. But I think teachers felt better at the end of this meeting, at least their feedback to us indicated that, about where they were, better about their units, that sort of thing. So if you want to unmute your mics, and if you have any questions, if you have suggestions for us based on what your teachers are saying, or concerns about the project, things that we might address, please let us know. So type in questions, unmute your mic, ask questions, any way we can help you. Sherry's typing. Sherry, you're correct. Next Thursday for the middle school MUSE, it would be you and the principals. This is just administrator meeting, not the teachers. They don't have to come. It's just an administrator meeting to get you familiar with the grant and all that sort of thing. So just administrators. And many of you are involved in our middle school MUSE grant as well. So make sure your teachers are registering for that. And this will just be an introduction and what we're going to be doing with the middle school grant, which will kind of piggyback on this one. So it'll be a great opportunity to get our middle school and high school kind of on the same page. Other questions, comments, concerns, things you're hearing? You have my email address, my phone number. Please call and let us know. We did hear from some teachers after our September meeting, and rightfully so, with concerns. We are still working. We still feel that ArcGIS software is very valuable. We're just trying to find somebody who can come in and do what we need done with that, with the training. So that's something we're working on, because we think it will be really important for students, a great opportunity for kids to get a leg up on that, because it's used widely in industry. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your morning. I know you're incredibly busy. Again, I'm going to go back and put, if I can find it quickly, the slide up that has the websites where we have the material, so that if you want to look at any of the material that's there, talk to your teachers about it. One of the things that is building capacity in your department is your ability, the teacher's ability to design instruction around these new standards. There's more than one way to do this. We think project-based learning is one of those ways. And then just, we've got a repository of resources to use. Any other questions? Thank you guys so much. Let's hope we don't get much snow and have to miss any more school. Hang in there and stay warm, and hope to talk to you soon.